Every single day, 20 million barrels of oil move through a corridor of water just 21 miles wide. At its narrowest point, the actual shipping lane, there are only 2 miles of navigable space in each direction. 2 miles. That is all that separates the global economy from complete paralysis. 20% of all the oil consumed on Earth today passes through this single narrow gateway between Iran and Oman. If that corridor closes, even for a few days, fuel prices spike on every continent. Transportation costs rise. Food prices follow. Financial markets shake from New York to Tokyo. Right now, warships patrol those waters. Insurance premiums for oil tankers are surging. Shipping companies have contingency plans that nobody talks about publicly, but everybody has ready, and the world watches, nervously, quietly, because everyone understands that a single miscalculation here could ignite something far larger than an energy crisis. The Strait of Hormuz, the most dangerous, 21 miles on Earth. But here is what the news never tells you. This is not a modern problem. This narrow gateway has been the most strategically critical body of water on Earth for more than 2,500 years. Cyrus the Great understood it. Alexander the Great fought for it. Rome spent centuries trying to control it. The Ottoman Empire built its entire commercial empire on it. Colonial powers carved up the Middle East because of it. And today, as missiles are fired and alliances are tested and the world argues about oil, the same forces that drove Persia and Greece to war 25 centuries ago are still playing out in the same narrow strip of water, because geography does not change, and the nation that controls this strait has always controlled the world. Before we go back to the beginning of this story, subscribe to the channel if you believe understanding the past is the only way to make sense of the present. Because here, at Secrets of the Ancient World, we don't just read the headlines. We reveal the 2,500-year-old story hiding behind them, the narrow gate. To understand why Hormuz has been a battlefield for millennia, you first need to understand what you are looking at when you look at a map of the Persian Gulf. The Persian Gulf is not an open ocean. It is a long, narrow body of water, almost completely enclosed, stretching roughly 1,000 kilometers from northwest to southeast. Along its western and northern shores sit some of the largest oil reserves ever discovered on Earth. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Iran. More than half of the world's proven oil reserves sit in the ground around this single body of water. And every tanker carrying that oil, every very large crude carrier hundreds of meters long loaded with millions of barrels, has only one way out. One, the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow gap between the Iranian coast and the tip of the Musandam Peninsula of Oman, at its tightest point just 21 miles across, through which every ship must pass to reach the open waters of the Indian Ocean. 20% of the world's oil, 1/5 of global consumption, every single day, through 2 miles of navigable water. Engineers and strategists have spent decades studying the problem. For years, an idea has circulated in the quiet rooms where infrastructure and power are discussed. A canal, cut straight through the Musandam Peninsula, that jagged, mountain fortress jutting into the strait, connecting the Persian Gulf directly to the Gulf of Oman. A bypass, a way to redesign geography itself. On paper, it is elegant. Ships leaving the Persian Gulf would no longer need to pass through Hormuz at all. The world's most dangerous choke point would become irrelevant. But the Musandam Peninsula is not flat desert. It is the Hajar Mountains, limestone peaks rising more than 2,000 meters above sea level. One of the most brutal and unforgiving terrains in the entire Middle East. Building a canal here would not mean dredging sand. It would mean blasting through entire mountain ranges, removing millions upon millions of tons of solid rock, creating a channel deep enough and wide enough for the largest ships ever built. The cost? Potentially hundreds of billions of dollars. To put that in perspective, the Panama Canal expansion, one of the most complex engineering projects of the 21st century, cost approximately $5 billion. The Musandam Canal would dwarf that many times over, and even if the mountains could somehow be moved, a canal would not eliminate the vulnerability. It would simply relocate it. Instead of a natural strait between nations, The world's oil supply would depend on a single artificial channel that could be blocked by a grounded tanker, targeted by a single missile, or closed overnight by any number of forces that no canal wall can stop. The global economy would trade one choke point for another. Geography is stubborn, and the story of why this particular piece of geography has been so impossible to solve begins not in a modern engineering office but on the Iranian plateau more than 2,500 years ago. If this is already changing how you see the world, leave a like on this video. It helps more people find the history that the news forgot to tell. The first empire to understand it. In the 6th century before Christ, as the Persian Empire was, still taking its first great breaths under the extraordinary vision of Cyrus the Great, the Persian kings understood something about geography that no one before them had ever articulated so clearly. The world's wealth did not move on land, it moved on water. The great trade routes of the ancient world, the silk and spices from India and China, the gold and ivory from Africa, the tin and grain from the Mediterranean, all of them, at some point, moved by ship. And the ships of the ancient world that wanted to travel between the Indian Ocean and the Persian Gulf all had to pass through one place, the same narrow channel between Iran and Arabia that the entire global economy still depends on today. Cyrus and his successors did not just conquer territory. They built a commercial empire on the control of water. Under Darius I, who expanded Persian power to its greatest extent, the empire did not merely border the Persian Gulf. It dominated both shores. The Iranian coast to the north, the Arabian coast to the south and west. Every ship moving between the Indian Ocean and the civilizations of Mesopotamia and beyond was moving through Persian-controlled waters. The tolls those ships paid, the taxes on the silk and spices and gold, flowed into Persian coffers and funded the roads and armies and palaces that made the Achaemenid Empire the most sophisticated civilization on Earth. Darius understood something fundamental. You do not need to own everything that passes through your territory. You just need to control the passage. The nation that controls the gate collects the toll, and the toll from Hormuz, even in the ancient world, was staggering. This was the real foundation of Persian power. Not just the armies, not just the roads, not just the administrative genius, the geography. The accident of birth that placed the Persian homeland directly above the most valuable waterway in the ancient world. And every empire that came after, Persia would spend centuries trying to take that advantage away. The Greeks knew it too. When the Persian Empire and the Greek city-states collided in the great wars of the 5th century before Christ, the wars that gave us Thermopylae and Salamis and Marathon, most people think of it as a clash of civilizations, East versus West, freedom versus tyranny, democracy against empire. Those narratives are not wrong, but beneath the philosophy and the heroism, there was something more concrete, driving the conflict. Trade routes. The Greek city-states, Athens in particular, had built their wealth and power on maritime commerce. Greek ships moved grain from the Black Sea to feed the cities of the Mediterranean. Greek merchants traded wine and olive oil for the goods of the East. Greek colonies dotted every coastline from Spain to the Black Sea. And the further east those trade routes extended, the more they brushed against Persian-controlled waters, Persian-controlled straits, Persian-controlled tolls. Athens needed free access to Eastern trade to maintain its commercial empire. Persia needed to control those same routes to maintain its commercial dominance. Two civilizations, one set of sea lanes. The Greco-Persian wars were not just a clash of values. They were a war over who controlled the arteries of ancient global commerce, and the straits and narrow passages of the Eastern Mediterranean, the approaches to the Black Sea, the routes through the Aegean, the gateway to the Persian Gulf, were the prize that neither side could afford to surrender. When Athens emerged from those wars as the dominant naval power of the Mediterranean, it was not just a victory for democracy, it was a commercial revolution. Athenian ships now moved through waters that Persian power could no longer fully control, and the wealth that flowed through those routes funded the Parthenon, the philosophers, the theater, the arts, everything we associate with the golden age of Greece was built on the foundation of maritime commerce. The strait between East and West had shaped the greatest civilization the Western world had ever produced. Rome never solved it. For 300 years after Alexander the Great dissolved Persian power and spread Greek culture across the known world, the question of who controlled the routes between the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean remained unanswered. Alexander's successors, the Seleucid Greeks, tried to hold the Persian Gulf. They failed. The Parthians pushed them out and rebuilt a Persian Empire on the same geographical foundation that Cyrus had understood centuries before. Control the waterways, collect the tolls, fund the power. Rome watched this from the west with growing frustration. The Roman Empire had conquered everything it could see from the Mediterranean. But the luxury goods that Roman citizens craved, the silk, the spices, the precious stones from India and China and the Far East, all of them traveled through Parthian-controlled routes. All of them paid Parthian tolls, and Rome paid the final price in the markets and shops of its great cities. Roman senators complained that Roman gold was flowing east to pay for Eastern luxuries, that the trade deficit with Parthia was draining the empire's treasury. That something needed to be done. The something that Rome tried, repeatedly, across generations, was war. Crassus marched east in 53 before Christ with the largest army Rome had ever sent into Parthian territory. He never came back. Destroyed at Carrhae, one of the most humiliating defeats in Roman history, his legions were surrounded by Parthian cavalry that used the desert terrain so masterfully that Roman military doctrine had no answer for it. Mark Antony tried next. He failed. Trajan pushed the furthest, briefly reaching the Persian Gulf in 116 AD, reportedly weeping that he was too old to follow in Alexander's footsteps to India. But even Trajan could not hold what he had taken. Within years of his death, Rome had retreated. The lesson was brutal and simple. Geography could not be conquered by force alone. The mountains and deserts and straits of the Middle East were not obstacles that armies could overcome permanently. They were features of the earth itself, patient, indifferent, permanent, that had absorbed every army since the beginning of recorded history and would continue to do so long after Rome was dust. Comment the word Hormuz below if you had no idea how ancient this struggle really is. I want to know how many of you see the connection between ancient Rome and today's headlines. The Ottoman chokehold. For centuries after Rome, through the rise of Islam, through the Arab caliphates, through the Mongol destruction, the routes between East and West remained the most valuable real estate in the known world. Whoever controlled the straits controlled the commerce. Whoever controlled the commerce controlled the wealth. Whoever controlled the wealth controlled the world. And then, in the 15th century, an empire rose that finally achieved what Rome had never managed: complete control of the routes between the Mediterranean and the East. The Ottoman Empire. When Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II rode into Constantinople in 1453 on his famous white horse, he was not just conquering a city. He was taking possession of the most strategically located city in the history of the ancient world. Constantinople sat at the ET, meeting point of Europe and Asia, at the crossing between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, at the junction of every major trade route between the civilizations of East and West. With Constantinople, the Ottomans controlled the Bosphorus Strait, the narrow passage between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. Combined with their expanding control of the Eastern Mediterranean, the Red Sea, and the approaches to the Persian Gulf, the Ottomans had achieved something unprecedented: near-complete chokehold on every major trade route connecting Europe to the riches of Asia. European merchants who wanted silk from China paid Ottoman tolls. European traders who wanted spices from India paid Ottoman tolls. The wealth of the East flowed westward, but a significant portion of it stopped in Ottoman coffers first. And the European powers, Portugal, Spain, England, the Netherlands, found themselves in an impossible position. They needed Eastern goods. Their economies depended on them. Their consumers demanded them. But every route to the East passed through Ottoman-controlled waters. The solution they eventually found would change the world more dramatically than any military conquest in history. Find a different route. Go around. Christopher Columbus sailed west in 1492, trying to find a passage to Asia that bypassed the Ottoman chokepoint. He found something else entirely. Vasco da Gama sailed south and east, around the tip of Africa, and arrived in India in 1498, without passing through a single Ottoman strait. The age of exploration, the discovery of the Americas, the circumnavigation of the globe, the birth of the modern world. All of it driven, in significant part, by the Ottoman Empire's control of the ancient routes through the Middle East. The choke point at the heart of the world had redirected the entire course of human history. Oil changed everything. For centuries after Vasco da Gama, as European maritime power expanded and the Ottoman Empire slowly declined, the Strait of Hormuz remained important, but not yet critical. The goods moving through those waters, spices, textiles, precious metals, were valuable, but the world could survive without them if the routes were disrupted. And then, in 1908, something was discovered beneath the desert sands of Persia that changed the strategic calculus of every nation on Earth: oil. In 1908, British engineers drilling in southwestern Iran struck the first major oil field in the Middle East. Within years, the scale of what lay beneath the Persian Gulf basin became clear. The largest oil reserves on Earth, the geological accident that had placed more concentrated energy wealth beneath these specific deserts and waters than anywhere else on the planet. And the only way to move that energy to the factories and engines and naval fleets of the industrial world was by ship, through the Persian Gulf, out through the Strait of Hormuz, into the Indian Ocean, and from there to the world. Suddenly, the narrow gateway that Cyrus the Great had understood as a commercial choke point 2,500 years earlier became something even more fundamental: the energy lifeline of modern civilization. The major powers of the 20th century rearranged their entire foreign policies around a single geographical reality: control the Gulf, control the Strait, control the oil, control the world. Britain had already positioned itself in the region through colonial agreements that divided the former Ottoman territories between London and Paris. The borders they drew, straight lines on maps with no regard for the peoples who lived there, created the nations we recognize today: Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Kuwait. Nations assembled from pieces of a world that had been organized very differently for the previous 2,000 years. And beneath all of those new nations, beneath the artificial borders and the foreign-imposed governments, lay the oil. When the United States emerged as the dominant global power after World War II, it inherited Britain's strategic obsession with the Persian Gulf. American policy in the region for the next 70 years was organized around a single principle that never changed regardless of which party held power: the Strait of Hormuz must remain open. The Soviet Union understood the same thing from the other direction. If the Strait of Hormuz could be closed, if the oil could be cut off, the Western economies would be strangled. The Cold War was fought on many stages, but few were as consequential as the invisible war for influence in the Persian Gulf. American support for the Shah of Iran, the Iranian Revolution that ended it, the Iran-Iraq War, the Gulf War, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. 2,500 years of competition for the same geography, dressed in 20th century clothes. If this video is showing you the world differently than before, share it with someone who thinks the Middle East story began with the discovery of oil. It began with the discovery of civilization, the 100 billion question. And so we return to the idea that captured the world's attention when the latest tensions in the Strait of Hormuz reminded everyone how fragile this system really is. The Canal, a bypass through the mountains of Musandam, a way to redesign geography itself. 2 miles of navigable water, 20% of global oil consumption. The possibility, always present, always real, that a single act of aggression in those 2 miles could send the global economy into shock. Engineers have calculated that a canal cutting through the Musandam Peninsula could theoretically bypass the strait entirely. Ships leaving the Persian Gulf could sail directly into the Indian Ocean without passing through Hormuz at all. The cost, potentially hundreds of billions of dollars. The engineering, cutting through mountains that rise more than 2,000 meters above sea level. The politics, requiring cooperation between nations that have been rivals for the entirety of recorded history. And even if all of those obstacles could somehow be overcome, a canal would not solve the problem. It would move it. The global economy would trade one narrow choke point for a single artificial channel, equally vulnerable, equally attackable, equally dependent on the stability of a region that has not known lasting stability in 2,500 years. There is a pattern in this history. that demands to be named. Every civilization that has ever tried to permanently solve the problem of Hormuz has failed. The Persians controlled it completely and then lost it to Alexander. Alexander won it from Persia and died before he could consolidate it. Rome spent centuries trying to break the Persian chokehold and never succeeded. The Ottomans achieved the most complete control of any empire, and the Europeans simply went around them. The colonial powers drew new borders and thought they had solved it, and the borders became the source of new conflicts. The Cold War superpowers maneuvered for dominance, and the region remains as contested today as it was in the time of Cyrus, because the problem of Hormuz is not an engineering problem. It is not a political problem. It is a geographical problem, and geography does not negotiate. History never ended. Today, as you read the headlines, as you watch the news about tanker seizures and missile tests and naval deployments in the Persian Gulf, you are watching the latest chapter of the oldest story in the world. The story of a narrow passage of water that connects the energy of the East to the needs of the world. The story of the civilizations that built their power on the ability to control that passage. The story of the civilizations that were destroyed when they lost control of it. 20 million barrels of oil every day through 2 miles of water. Cyrus the Great would recognize the stakes immediately. Darius would understand the geography better than most modern analysts. The Parthian kings who held Rome at bay for centuries would nod quietly at the news that the same standoff is still happening in the same place. Because the world has changed. Ships are larger. The cargo is different. The weapons are unimaginably more destructive. But the geography has not changed. And the fundamental question, who controls the narrow gate between East and West, has not changed. It has never changed. Not in 2,500 years. The Strait of Hormuz is not a modern crisis. It is the world's oldest unresolved question, wearing the clothes of the 21st century. And every time the world looks at that narrow strip of water and asks what to do about it, the answer requires understanding not just today's map, but every map that came before it. Every empire that tried and failed to make this problem disappear. Every king and general and strategist who stood at the edge of these waters and believed that this time, this empire, this strategy, this technology would finally be the one to solve what geography has refused to allow for 25 centuries. None of them solved it. Because you cannot solve geography. You can only understand it. And perhaps that is the most important lesson this ancient strait has to teach a world that still hasn't learned it. The gate was here before us. It will be here after us. And the civilizations that understand why, the ones that study its history instead of simply reacting to its headlines, are the ones that have always been best prepared for what comes next. Subscribe if this story opened a door you didn't know existed. Because here, at Secrets of the Ancient World, the past is not something we look back at. It is the map we use to navigate forward. And together, we bring it back to life.